my co-host this week, Kirby the Cat. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe Weekly. My name is Jim Rugg, and this is the week of June 12th. We're getting ready for HeroesCon in Charlotte, North Carolina, one of my first comic conventions this year and one of the biggest shows that I'll be doing this year. I have been attending HeroesCon for probably over 10 years. It's one of my favorite shows. It's very comic-centric. Lots of cartoonists there, lots of great collectors, lots of great retailers. So it's one of my favorite comic book weekends of the year, and I am looking forward to it, as is Ed. We are getting ready to hit the road in 2 days, so packing today, making last-minute preparation, but we wanted to kind of let you guys know what to expect from us this week, as well as what to expect if you're going to that show. If you're attending HeroesCon, Ed and I will be doing 4 panels in conjunction with Cartoonist Kayfabe. Our first panel is Friday at 3 p.m. It's a Cartoonist Kayfabe Live episode. It's the first time we've done something like this, although we've been on plenty of panels before. But we'll be on a panel together talking about Cartoonist Kayfabe, which means talking about all things comics, what we love about comics, probably talking about some HeroesCon specific content. You know, whether it's stories from the past, things we're looking forward to, who knows? Come and check that out. You know, we've been preparing this for several weeks. We have a dozen pages of notes, and we'll probably fine-tune this on the way to Charlotte. It's an 8-hour drive. That drive has become somewhat mythic in my own history. It's a place where we workshop a lot of ideas, and we kind of start our year fresh and reflect on the year behind us. So expect some of that in the Cartoonist Kayfabe Live episode, and if you're there on Friday, please join us for that. Saturday we have 2 panels. At 11 a.m., Chris Brennaman is going to interview us in Cartoonist Kayfabe Origins. Chris is a longtime comics fan. We've known Chris for, as long as we've been going to Heroes probably. So we're looking forward to sitting down with him and just talking about the show, how it came about, and whatever other questions he may have for us. There will also be Q&As at these panels, so if you have questions for us that you want to ask in person, come prepared. I'm sure there'll be time at one of those panels, if not both of those, for a little bit of Q&A with the crowd. At 1:30 on Saturday, Cartoonist Kayfabe Spotlight, Bill Sienkiewicz. We've been talking about this one for a while. Bill Sienkiewicz, one of the most influential cartoonists and creators in comics history, in my opinion. A huge inspiration visually for me. If you follow my art, you know that I tend to jump around in different styles and work with different media. Bill Sienkiewicz is one of the guys that really pioneered this kind of approach to making comics and to tailoring style and media to the story. I'm excited to have a chance to share a stage with this man and really kind of talk about his experience in comics. I think that his influence on comics changed the direction of comics in a massive way, and I'm curious to kind of get his reflections on that. You know, I've been reading interviews with him, as has Ed. We've been watching interviews on YouTube in different places, but there's a great interview in the Comics Journal in 1986 where he kind of talks about, you know, his plans for comics and his ambitions for comics. You know, at that point he was working on Elektra Assassin, he was painting a Daredevil graphic novel, and when I think of Bill Sienkiewicz and some of the revolutionary work that he did, it's a lot of the work that comes from that period of 1986 to the early 90s. Things like Big Numbers with Alan Moore, Brought to Light also with Alan Moore. Certainly the collaborations with Frank Miller are huge. He wrote and drew Stray Toasters himself. I should say wrote and painted and drew Stray Toasters himself. So he was doing a lot of very exciting work. Adapted Moby Dick for Classics Illustrated in that time frame. Did 6 issues of The Shadow at DC. Very prolific time period and very unique artist. So we'll get into that and kind of see how he reflects on the impact that he's had and where comics are today. Our last panel is on Sunday at 12 p.m. It's Action Auteurs with Chuck Forsman and Michel Fiffe. These are cartoonists we've been friends with and known for a very long time. They have, one thing we all have in common is that we all tend to do, you know, we're one-person operations. We tend to write, draw, letter, color, sometimes publish, you know, do all of these things ourselves. And they're guys that we have had conversations with about making comics, reading comics, comics at large for quite a few years, and this is a chance for us to get on stage and talk about that. And it's interesting to see everybody's arcs. You know, you're obviously familiar with Ed going from self-publishing WYSIWYG to, you know, one of the biggest properties in comics with the X-Men Grand Design. Michel Fiffe kind of rose to prominence self-publishing Copra for years, and an amazing full-color superhero book that he was doing everything with, including shipping to subscribers. And that has recently been picked up and published in collections by Image Comics and a beautiful series of books. And along the way, he's gotten, you know, he's captured the eye of a lot of people in comics. It's led to work with IDW on G.I. Joe. It's led to work with Image Comics on Bloodstrike. So Michel Fiffe has come a long way. He's always worn his comics love on his sleeve. One of my favorite people to talk to about comics. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. Chuck Forsman started out self-publishing with Snake Oil, a mini comic. That's when I became aware of his work, when he was doing Snake Oil. It was a mini comic that I looked forward to with each and every issue. He went on to do small publishing as Oily Comics. This was a mini comic subscription service where he was actually printing the books and fulfilling the orders himself, as well as, you know, recruiting a crew of different cartoonists who were all doing their own books under this Oily Comics line for a couple of years. Since then, he's gone on to a much higher profile, The End of the Fucking World. You may recognize from the Netflix series that's based on his graphic novel. They're just starting to produce and shoot his new series, and that is actually being done in Pittsburgh. So I hope to see Chuck along the way this summer as his work on that series progresses. He's a very interesting cartoonist and gaining acclaim through channels outside of the typical Marvel DC model. And we'll get into all of that on Sunday. So if you're an aspiring cartoonist, this should be a great panel to check out. If you're a fan of any of our work, I think you would enjoy the others. So please put that on your schedule for Sunday. If you can't make it to HeroesCon, have no fear. If you're following this channel, you've probably been noticing a lot of new shows going up. We have recently posted Wizard number 24. This is the conclusion of the first 2 years of Wizard. This is what we started doing the show with, coverage of Wizard magazine, mostly as a guide to the history of 90s comics. And 1993, Wizard 24, we are at the kind of apex of the bubble of the speculator boom of the early 90s. And it's a wild issue. It's a wild time for comics. You get a sense that nobody really knows what to expect from comics. It's a very fun issue, so check that one out if you haven't already. Ed and Tom continue their march through the work of Alan Moore in their Read More Comics series with V for Vendetta. Just went up this week. One of Alan Moore's early and celebrated works with David Lloyd. And I recently posted an episode called Making Zines, where I put together 3 zines, mostly for HeroesCon, but it's a chance to see saddle stitching and how that process works. I've done a few process videos in the past you guys seem to appreciate, from hard binding books to drawing and applying screen tone. And in this case, it's basically printing comics yourself, putting them together, trimming them. And I put together 3 books in that episode: Rambo 3.5, my wrestling zine, and a Street Angel sketchbook. So give that a look, especially if you're trying to make comics yourself. You might find the process a lot easier than you expect it to be. And coming up tomorrow, we're going to drop the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's 35th anniversary for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. As you can imagine, that is a huge book for me, for Ed, and for Tom. So the 3 of us got together, climbed down into the sewer subterranean basement lair, and put together one of my favorite episodes so far. A lot of enthusiasm for this book and for what that book meant to all of us, and continues to mean to this day to comics. So mark your calendars for that. It'll be live on Wednesday. Reader question this week is from Chris Pitzer, publisher of At House Books. He asks for podcast recommendations. A lot of you are going to be traveling to Heroes, and what should you listen to on the ride? First thing I will do is shamelessly plug this show. As some of you may know, we also have a podcast feed for Cartoonist Kayfabe. So if you've missed any shows, or you just want to listen to us on the way to HeroesCon, check that out wherever you get podcasts. through the Apple Store, through Spotify, through several other channels that I am not thinking of at the moment. But wherever podcasts are found, you can find Cartoonist Kayfabe. So you can find some episodes there. I was recently on Brian Heater's RIYL podcast through Boing Boing. This just went up, I think, this past weekend. So if you don't get enough of me, this is a chance to hear me in a very caffeinated state, talking quickly for an hour. We talk about all things comics. We talk about Cartoonist Kayfabe. We talk about my catalog, what I'm reading, what I'm looking at, what I'm teaching. If you've never listened to RIYL, I encourage you to check that out. It's one of my favorite podcasts. Brian talks to a lot of interesting people, and even sometimes people like me. So give that one a listen. That'll be an hour of your drive. One of my favorite wrestling personalities is Jim Cornette, and one of the podcasts that he recently posted is a 5-hour dive into a deep dive into OVW history. This was a developmental wrestling organization run around the Louisville area by Jim Cornette, and it was WWE, WWF developmental early on. So guys like John Cena came through there, I believe, Batista, Brock Lesnar, I think, had a stint there early on. A lot of major wrestlers went through this, and it was basically run similar to NXT or similar to a regional wrestling program. They were putting on shows, they were doing training. So 5 hours of Jim Cornette, if you're looking for something, if you have a long drive, if you're a fan of Cornette or if you're a fan of wrestling history, this will give you a look kind of behind the curtain a little bit. I don't have a lot of other podcast recommendations at this time, so I'm calling on the Kayfabers out there. What's a good podcast for us to listen to on our drive? Please post some recommendations in the comments below this video. I am always looking for more podcasts to listen to. I've been listening to Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. Those kind of vary depending on the guest. You know, Howard Stern has been making rounds to promote his latest book. He had a 2-parter on Terry Gross' Fresh Air that was pretty good. He was on Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. That was fun. Famously, he's said that Conan O'Brien was his favorite or best interview, so he gets to return the favor by going on there. If you're a Howard Stern fan, that might be of interest to you. Another fun episode of Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend has been the Bob Newhart episode. So those are a couple of recommendations. But again, Kayfabers, let's put our minds together and let's hear what's good in the podcast world at the moment. And you can send your emails to Cartoonist, and you can send emails to us at cartoonist.kayfabe@gmail.com. We don't answer all of them on the air, but we definitely read them all. So please let us know what's going on, and if you have any questions, send them our way. Big release next week, Ed Piskor's X-Men Grand Design Extinction #2. This is the conclusion of the epic history of the X-Men that Ed has been working on for several years and really putting out some great comics. We've talked a little bit about Extinction. This gets into the area that I read as a kid. It's some of my favorite X-Men comics, so as good as X-Men Grand Design has been up to Extinction, I'm not going to lie, Extinction is my favorite. And the series concludes next week with Extinction #2. Be sure to pick that up. And a reminder that Ed is nominated for an Eisner Award for X-Men Grand Design. So if you're a professional out there that has a vote for the Eisners, please be sure and do that. Finally, I thought I would preview some of the stuff that you can get from us at HeroesCon this week. I will have all of the Street Angel hardcovers, all 5 Image hardcovers, as well as the Ad House collection. I will also have the Street Angel sketchbook, which I put together in the video making zines. And this is a collection of Street Angel art from the last couple of years. Some of it's promotional, some of it is commissioned work, and some of it's just fun book sketches and things that I do that I like the artwork. So it's a Street Angel sketchbook. I put together Rambo 3.5 by request. This is a mini comic that I did several years ago. It won an Ignatz Award for outstanding mini comic, whatever year it came out. These have been out of print for a while, but with a new Rambo movie and with a lot of encouragement from you guys, I have put together another print run of these. So if you need Rambo 3.5, I will have that at Heroes. Aphrodisiac, my 70s ode to exploitation films and weird superhero comics of the 70s like Son of Satan and Ghost Rider. I will have these available as well. My new zine for HeroesCon is the wrestling zine. This is the cover here. You can see the table of contents. You know, it's highly influenced by wrestling magazines of my childhood. This is another one of those things, I guess nostalgia driven. But this is a collection of wrestlers. You can see there Abdullah the Butcher. This is a collection of wrestling drawings that I've made over the last 10 years, from comic book covers to wrestling homages, like Tom Scioli's Gobot cover that I did that is supposed to look like an old wrestling magazine. So you can pick that up at my table as well. I will also have some zines, some very low quantity stuff like the notebook zines. I found a couple of copies of the Silhouette zine. That's something we posted a video about a while ago. I'll post a link below this video in case you missed it. The Silhouette zine is very, very rare. It includes an original drawing by me. So if you want one of those, get there as soon as possible. Those things are pretty rare. I will also have a lot of prints at the show. This is an example of a new print that I made, Book Lovers #2, a couple of Kissing in a Library. These will be available for the first time at HeroesCon. I kind of made these for the upcoming ALA show, but they arrived in time to bring them to Heroes. I have done a previous Book Lovers print that has been well received, so if you're a fan of libraries, books, romance comics, any of these things, check it out. Besides prints, and I'll have a number of prints, you know, not just this one, but Street Angel prints, various art prints, things that I've made over the years, sometimes commercials, such as maybe a Fortnite poster. I don't know if I'm bringing those or not. They're a little bit oversized, but there'll be a variety of prints available at my table. I will also have a lot of original art, so drawings that I've done pre-show commissions, as well as things for book covers, one-offs, things that I draw to amuse myself. This is one I just finished yesterday, and if you look closely, you can see screen tone all through this. So I will have a variety of artwork, original artwork, at my table as well. Come and check that out. Even if you're not an art collector, it's always fun to look at this stuff, so I'll have a binder full of artwork at the show. Ed, of course, will be bringing his Hip Hop Family Tree comics to the show. In the past, he has also brought his Public Enemy toys, which are super freaking awesome. He even designed the boxes for these things. Hopefully I'm not telling any tales that aren't true, but I believe he still has some of these Public Enemy figure sets, and if so, I'm sure he will bring a couple of those to Heroes. FYI, these things tend to sell very quickly, so if you want one of those, get to his table first thing whenever you get there. Of course, there will be X-Men Grand Design, as well as probably some of the new issues. Again, I'm not 100% certain, but stop by, see what he has. He also will have a variety of prints, you know, like these 11x17 prints. So again, they tend to go quickly. There are limited numbers of these things. Stop by and pick those up if you're interested in one. He's also going to be bringing some original art. He was drawing those X-Men corner box art pieces. I think he's planning to bring some of those. He's been posting those on social media. Follow us on Instagram, @JimRuggArt, @EdPiskor, to see more of what we're bringing. We've both been posting previews of some of the artwork and books that we're putting together as we pack. You can check that stuff out to kind of get more detail on what to expect at these shows. We also made some Cartoonist Kayfabe stickers that we'll be giving out at the show, so come by, pick up some of these. We have a couple of varieties of them. You can decorate your sketchbooks with them like I did here, or put them on your laptops, or, I don't know, vandalize the bathroom stalls, or whatever you do with stickers. Come by and grab those. And that's it for this week. Like, follow, and subscribe. Be sure and hit the bell icon to be notified whenever we post new videos, like the upcoming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 35th anniversary special. You can support our channel through our merch shop, like this Comics 316 shirt at our spread shop. There is a link below this video where you can find more of these. Thanks for watching, and remember, read more comics.